So a lot of people have been asking me lately the differences between 401ks and Roth IRAs. I had a client recently just ask me, so my company has a match, right? And I'm investing up to the match, but I want to continue investing. What do I do? So this video is primarily going to talk about the difference between an employee contribution plan like a 401k or Roth 401k versus your own individual Roth or IRA. Okay, and a lot of times you'll hear finance coaches, finance pundits, individuals that really focus in on helping people. They'll say, "Hey, invest up to the company match, and then invest in your own IRA because you have more options." So, for those of you in this video, more so is focused on people that are employees at a job or independent contractors under an umbrella company where they have the options of 401ks, particularly with matches or even without a match, just 401k. So they'll say invest up to the match and then put the rest in a Roth IRA because in a 401k you may have, 5, 6, 7, 10 different options on what you can invest in. In a Roth, like if you did it with an online broker or somebody else, you can have, hundreds of options, ETFs, mutual funds, individual stocks even. The sky's the limit on what you can invest in, okay? So what I'm going to tell you is my opinion on how I recommend people to do it, and there's a very particular reason behind it. So in my opinion, what I teach people is that after you get to your match in your 401k, the next amount of money so you up to your match, what do you do with the rest? Do you go Roth or do you continue with the 401k? I say do a 1-to-2 split. So let's say you got another percentage of your income you want to invest. So let's say another $100. Let's say another $150. Put 100 in the 401k and 50 in the Roth. Right? I want you to continue putting money into the 401k versus take all of your money and put it to the Roth. Why? Very particular reason. It's because of individual behavior. In a 401k, the money comes out before you even see it. Now you can adjust your percentages and things like that for your 401k, but once you set it in a typical payroll schedule, the money's going to come out before it hits your bank account. In a Roth, if you do it with an online brokerage, it's not going to come out of the check. It may come out of your bank account if you set it up that way, but it's going to hit your check first, hit your bank account, and then you'll have an automatic withdrawal out of your bank account. Why is one better than the other? Because of individual behavior. The reason, let's go to another point really quick, and then I want to circle back. The reason pensions 50, 60, 70 years ago worked so much better than employee contribution plans, aka 401ks, is because it took the individual behavior out of it. If you work for a company, if you work for the railroad company, they're going to take out 7% of your check, just like Social Security. That's the reason Social Security is so important and we need it. But I'll get back to that. If you work to a railroad company, they take out 7% of your check for pension. You don't have any control over it. It's almost like a tax to you. 25 years later, if you continue working at that company, you retire and you don't have to work again. They're going to give you a check every week or every 2 weeks or every month for the rest of your life, and you live on that. Whether people were conceived as smart people or not so smart people, it worked for anybody who worked for the railroad company or the post office company or firefighters or policemen, anybody who worked for, or the county, anybody who worked for X amount of years, you retire with a check for the rest of your life. That's a pension. An employee contribution one is you and I put money in, however much money we want to put in, however often we want to do it, and when we leave that company or when we're at retirement age, hopefully we'll have enough to retire. Now folks will say pension plans, Social Security works the same way, right? Social Security takes out 7% of our checks. We don't have any control about it. I think the only time you don't pay Social Security is if you're like in ministry, certain levels of ministry and things like that. But for the most part, we all pay Social Security. We don't have any control. And when we get to Social Security age, we get a check, right? Let's take out the fact that some people think that Social Security will be bankrupt and we won't have the money. Take that out for a second. Just assume it works. Some people will say, well, Social Security and pensions have horrible rates of return compared to the stock market. True, it's true. Their rate of return maybe 3%, 4%, maybe less, right? But the point is, and we talked about this in an earlier video, the rate of return is far less important than the employee or the individual behavior. Meaning, in a pension or a Social Security, if your kid needs braces, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you can't increase your check by decreasing what you pay in Social Security or to your pension. With a 401k, if your kid needs braces, you can turn off your 401k for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then the ones of us, I'm including myself in this, I've done this too, the ones of us that think we're smart, we'll rationalize. We'll say, okay, well, if I turn it off for 1 to 2 to 3 months, I can make it up in the back half of the year. Or I can make it up with a bonus. Or I can make it up by putting more in throughout the next 2 years, right? And that's where we screw it up. We screw it up because we try to rationalize not putting the money in over years, all our working life, consistently. So what happens is when people get in their 40s and 50s, they have $100,000 in their 401k, right? $150,000 in their 401k. When they get to their 60s, $175,000 in their 401k, and then they wonder why they're in the position that they're in, right? Or we wonder why we're in the position we're in. This is why it's so important to live off at least 90% of your income, or no more than 90% of your income, because that 10% has to consistently go into the investments, consistently. There is no breaks. If your kids need, like I said, if your kid needs braces, you got to find it on a 90%. If you get a flat tire, if your engine goes out, we'll talk about emergency funds later. It's got to come out of that, because when you rationalize how much money you're putting in your investments, you're perpetuating the reason why pensions were always a better option than the 401k plan. Okay, so getting back to 401k versus Roth, Roths are very powerful tools. They're powerful tools. You don't pay taxes on anything when it comes out, because you pay taxes on the money before it goes in, and then it builds tax-free, right? Very powerful tool. I believe in it. If your company doesn't have a Roth and it only has a traditional, I do believe in the Roth, but I believe you need to put 2 parts in 401k until you reach the max you can on 401k. There's a dollar amount. Can't remember off the top of my head. It might be like 26,000 or something. I mean, or 17,000. It's a larger amount than just a few dollars, right? It's upwards of 10 to 20, maybe even higher than 20, 25,000. I'll put in the notes the limits on what you can put into a 401k. Now, once you hit that limit, right, you don't have any other vehicle, so then you have to put money into Roths and things like that. And then once you reach your Roth limit, $5,500, you have to go into just additional, brokerage accounts or mutual funds that are not tax sheltered like Roths and 401ks. But anyway, the premise of the video is when somebody's looking at a 401k or any employee-based plan, particularly when you have a match, but even without the match, when you're looking at one versus the other, and somebody says the Roth or the individual retirement account is better because it has more options, that's true. But remember the behavior. Remember the reason people don't retire with money anymore. Remember the reason why we see our older generation working at places like McDonald's and Walmart. Partly is they want to be in the workforce, but the other reason is they need the money. Remember why that's happening. It's not because people are stupid. It's because people have individual behaviors and emotions, and they rationalize what they should be doing versus pensions and Social Security. No rationalization. It's coming out your check whether you want it or not. So I recommend always putting 2 parts into the 401k after match. 2 parts in the 401k, 1 part into a Roth. So if you have $150 after, so you're putting money into your 401k up to the match, you got $150 more to put in. I would put 100 in the 401k and 50 in the Roth. So if your behavior is good, it'll all grow. If your behavior is screwed up like most of us, you'll probably mess up the Roth, but at least you'll have the 401k that's much harder to pull out, right? You got to take out 401k loans. You got to quit your job. There's a lot. It's harder to get money out of a 401k than a Roth. I mean, you just literally hit a button on your online brokerage account or make a phone call and it comes out, right? So that's what I want to hit you guys with today. I'll put the notes on the limits for 401ks and Roths. And of course, for teachers, 403Bs, any employee-based plan is what I'm talking about here versus a plan that you and I control. You and I don't have the discipline to do this over 40 years as easily as if it's in a employee-based plan, right? Because the goal is, it's not who's smart and who's not smart. It's having the discipline to put it in over and over and over for a long period of time, right? Get with me on the website, normbakerjr.com, if you got questions, if you want to work through some of this. Next, we'll talk about emergency funds. You want to hit emergency funds so you can kind of know how much for an emergency fund do I need before I start investing. The answer is easy, but we'll talk about it later. All right. Talk to you guys later.